staying with the economy, we've had some really bad numbers coming out this week. IIP, CPI, for example, though WPI has shown a bit, easing a bit. Last week, we had CSO coming out with depressing numbers as far as the GDP is concerned. What is it? How do you look at the numbers? What do the numbers say?
See, the numbers are just a manifestation of what all of us have been feeling, right? You look at our paper, we've been pretty gloomy, haven't we, about the state of the economy. But I think if you look at our own newsroom, I think, and you look at some of the pieces that have been done since January, I think there's a sense that we've hit bottom. And I think in some ways we have. And I'm not even sure we'll go to 5%. I don't want to suggest that there's any sleight of hand here, but it'll be good, right? If you estimate it to grow by 5%, and then you actually manage 5.6%, it's better than expected. A lot of companies do this. Their estimates are very conservative. To be sure, I have a feeling that we will grow by 5% because last year was pretty bad. We didn't do a lot of things that we should have done. We messed up. The structural aspects of the economy aren't as strong as they should be. But my sense is that we've probably hit rock bottom, that things will only look up from now on. 13-14 will obviously be a far better year than 12-13. And all the numbers are part of that, because my sense again is the whole wholesale price inflation and retail price inflation, consumer inflation, I honestly can't explain, why one is coming down, why inflation at the wholesale rates is coming down and that not in retail prices is going up. It could be because there's a lead effect, could be because there's a lag in terms of consumer. It could also be because people are hoarding at the retail level. But whatever it is, I think this is probably a gap that will narrow over a period of time. I don't think it's going to grow. I could be wrong, but I don't economically I don't think it can continue to grow unless there's something fundamentally wrong in terms of hoarding, or there are other factors that causes a significant lag to happen. So I think things will get better. Everyone's now waiting to see what happens in the budget, right? And if it's a progressive budget, I think it probably will be, at least in part. If you look at the trend of what this government has been doing since September, things should get better.
But despite the 5%, despite the dismal number, you do have people like, Francois Hollande, the French president here. He's got a big business delegation with him, 45 members, I believe. You have David Cameron, who's coming in apparently next week. I need to confirm that, but there is a certain, confidence, therefore, in the Indian growth story or in the Indian story.
Yeah,
presumably.
I agree. I think at the consumer level, this is not going to go away, right? You look at Cameron. I'm told that one of the big focus areas for him is going to be education, right? Because you look at a country with a population as significant as India's, people with as much aspiration. The number of people in the middle class has increased. A lot of people go up, a lot of young students go abroad even for undergraduate studies, right? 20 years ago they used to go abroad for postgraduate, but now they're even going abroad for undergraduate, which means after their schooling. So everyone will want to tap into that, and those numbers are not going to come down. Education in some ways, I'm not saying in all ways, but in some ways is recession proof. You look at the French, they're also obviously here because of the defense aspects of it. India has traditionally been a buyer of French defense equipment. They won that big aircraft order. And it's a country which will continue to spend on defense, although of course I'm told that this year we could see the defense budget shrinking a bit. I'm not so sure it's a good idea, but if you have to balance the fiscal deficit, you have to balance the fiscal deficit. So to come back to your question, I don't think the India story is dead. The India story is there. But the question is, how do you build on it? How do you create an environment which is conducive for people to believe the story and to do something about it and to take advantage of the story? And that's where I think there were a lot of gaps in what this government did. Some of those gaps are beginning to go away. We are beginning to hear the right kind of noises that are being made. We'll have to see where it goes now.
Next week we have the budget session of Parliament starting, but we also have another scam which has come up. How do you look at a session of Parliament comes up just before that there is some kind of trouble for the government. Now it's not only the scam, the VVIP helicopter scam. You do have the Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha, Mr. Kurian, who's also under a cloud. So what's in store for us as far as Parliament goes?
See, it's depressing actually, right? Because it probably means very little work is going to get done in what is a very crucial session of Parliament. But looking at the information that's coming out, I don't think we can hint at a conspiracy of sorts to sort of disrupt government procedure, because at least in the case of the helicopter purchase, the investigation happened in Italy, and it's another sovereign. We don't have. I don't think we can interfere with what they're doing, and they came up with something which Times Now had actually broken in India last year itself. Last year, or was it the year before? Last year.
Last year.
And the government, quite honestly, did nothing about it except by their own admission as the contractor whether it made any legal payments, and the contractor is obviously going to say no, right? He's not going to say yes after having made the payment. So I think it points to lacunae in how this government reacts the first time these incidents come out. But at the end of the day, if there has been a kickback that's been paid to someone, it's very difficult in this day and age to mask these things. The number of global enforcement and investigative agencies that track money has just gone up has gone up significantly, largely a fallout of the fight against terror. And you look at terror funding, you also end up looking at arms deals and everything else. And money laundering is in the top 5 list in terms of priorities and focus for any investigative agency in the world. And information such as what has been coming out on the Chopper deal will come out at some point in time. The question is, I think this government knew something was wrong last year and could have probably reacted in a better way. And even now, I don't think they've tried to become part of the investigation that the Swiss and the Italians are doing. They probably need to. I think the timing is unfortunate. It could have happened at any time. It's just unfortunate for us that it's happened. Kurian's case, I don't know. The man's been acquitted by several courts, but then you have the victim herself coming out and saying something. So clearly there needs to be closure of some sort as far as that case is concerned, and there hasn't been closure. And personally, I think if you are in public life and if allegations of this sort are made, and the allegations are plausible, right? It's not an out-of-the-world allegation. Someone's not claiming that they were kidnapped and sexually abused by aliens in an UFO, right? It's a very plausible allegation. It could be false. Several courts have held, I don't think they've held the allegations to be false, but they've said that this man is all right and everything else. So I think the right thing for him to do would be to step down and face a proper investigation, and depending on what the investigation decides, action should be taken. But instead of that, I think he's fairly keen to hold on. I think we have to, and I don't blame him, because in this country you have trial by media, you have trial by opposition parties, and I don't think we understand the concept of someone being innocent till he is proved guilty. So a resignation in this country may well be taken as a sign of guilt. May well be seen as a victory for everyone else. Well, I would think, if I were to look at it in a very puristic way, I would think that a resignation is the right approach, because I think you're taking the high moral ground and saying, I don't want my office to be tainted in any way by this. I want to quit. Let me be investigated, and after that, we'll do what needs to be done. I think that's what Advani did in the case of the Jain Hawala case after some time, but he did it. And I think it was quite an admirable thing to do. So maybe you should just quit, and that would make things easier for everyone, right? You'll make sure work doesn't get affected, because at the end of the day, you have to look at the greater good. You shouldn't look at your own personal position and status and things like that.
So basically, trouble for the government.
Yeah, it's trouble for the government. Wrong time, but we are used to it, right? It's been happening for quite some time. Every time it looks like this country is taking a few steps forward, there's something that happens. And I'm not saying there's a conspiracy, but there is something that happens. And some of these are quite simply past sins that are revisiting us.
Yeah.
And something that happens that disrupts the whole thing and takes away the momentum of what's been happening, of all the good work that's been done.
Thank you very much, Sukumar. That's all we have for you this week. Thanks for watching. Please stay tuned for more.